Isn't this what you came here for? Isn't this what you came here for?
Welcome, everyone, to the You Can't Handle the True Sports podcast. I am Rubbish, and with me is my legendary companion, if I could get it out, the Pistol. How you doing, mate? You going all right? It's been a couple of weeks, been a little while.
It's been a couple of weeks, but yeah, going all right, especially after the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. For those who don't know, I've been away for work for a little bit, so we've had a couple of week hiatus, and in that time, a fair bit's happened actually, because we missed the draw. Well, I missed the draw. I was flying home at the time that it happened against the Pies. I've heard differing versions of how good or bad that game was. My view when I got to see most of the replay was that we were probably a little bit underwhelming for most of that in the second half, I would say. But then, wow, we come out against Melbourne, and I don't know if anyone saw what was coming. So we've absolutely flogged who were my pre-season tip. I think if you remember rightly, I had them down to have 19 wins.
No chance of that
now. not when games like what happened on the weekend happen. They are no chance of that.
No.
So we've absolutely pummeled them by 92 points, and yeah, like I said, I don't know if anyone really saw that coming, because it was such a dominant performance. I personally liken it. The only game I can think of where the Dockers have played that well for an entire 4 quarters, aside from maybe the first 5 minutes, was probably that game against Sydney to get us into the grand final in 2013. I don't remember a game where we've been that dominant, that unrelenting, that uncompromising.
I guess that's the key point there, is, and probably the similarity is that pressure. I think they the pressure gauge they showed on Fox Footy, it was off the charts. It was like 250 range in that first quarter. For a 10-minute period, we just pummeled them with pressure.
Yeah, so I was driving home. As the game was going. I was listening to the game, and I've had a chance now to watch it. Like I'd say, all good supporters would have probably watched this game at least a couple of times now, because of you got to take these sort of performances when you get them, because they seem to be few and far between. But that game, I mean, we were dominant in all phases across all areas of the ground, but to me, we never gave Melbourne an opportunity to to settle, because our midfield just smacked them. Like they just belted them across. And so it helped our backline out so much, because, as dominant as, Jordan Clark and Alex Pearce and Luke Ryan, the usual suspects were, it was under immense midfield pressure. So they weren't getting the quality of ball in. It was really something to behold, actually.
I think they only had like 35, 37 entries, and most of those entries were hack kicks, and what Luke Ryan's like with those, he's just intercepting those all day. So they rarely had an opportunity to actually have some decent, forward entries. And the only real two I can think of is the first 2 goals they kicked, when put that mark inside 50, and then I think it was McAdam the other one.
It might have been McAdam. Might have been. Yeah. Can't quite remember.
But apart from those first 2 goals, it was a struggle for them all day.
Yeah, it was. And so a lot of the narrative in the media is, and I understand why, has been around Melbourne, and how bad they were. But I think it would be complete neglect to undersell just how well we played. If you want to talk about attitude, in this game, Stats can be misleading. Stats can be skewed. But I don't think stats in this game actually, I think they tell the exact story. So
Yeah.
you've got a total of 444 disposals for Freo. So we owned the ball. All right. There was, we had a lot more kicks, almost close to 100 more kicks, but we're a high handball side, and Melbourne actually had more handballs than us. We had 164 handballs. So the ratio of, half to half, or, it's really 2-to-1 handballs, close enough to, for us. That was actually beaten by Melbourne, and I think that says a lot about the pressure that you're
100%,
saying that we were.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, and then even like we've had 80 more possessions, but we've actually beaten Melbourne in the tackles. We had 53.
Yeah.
We had 53 tackles to 52. So it just the illustration there of the attitude that Freo came into that game with. I think that just it says, well, not only are we going to win the ball, but we're gonna harass you and tackle you as hard as and as often as we can. To take control of the game.
And I can't remember who said it. I think it was one of the commentators during the game. But that last probably 10, 15 minutes of the Pies game, where we just sort of, I don't know, flicked a switch and we just threw caution to the wind. And we sort of changed. We put 4 goals on real quick. Now, I don't know what exactly changed there, but that continued into the Melbourne game, and we played very similar football. So whether we, by luck or by chance or whatever, unlocked something in our own system during the Pies game, we've continued that on for 4 quarters in the Demons game, and it was unreal.
Yeah, it was just. Yeah, it was quite amazing to watch, and I think Jordan Clark. I've seen a lot of people praise Jordan Clark in that game, and to be fair, everybody I think played a great game, and he was brilliant. He got his 36 touches, kicked a goal, but I actually don't know if I'd have him in our best 5 players or best 3 players. If giving out the votes, like Jordan Clark was brilliant, but in my mind, this was one off the back of Sam Switkowski, Hayden Young, Josh Tracy, Jai Amos would be, and Sean Darcy, I'd say, with Luke Jackson thrown in there. So I don't. Well, definitely being a Freo supporter, we can't undersell defence, but it was just that domination from the midfield, and you could tell Melbourne, Petraka, Oliver, Viney, they're superstars, even Gawn to a degree. They were getting frustrated and angry.
Yeah.
They did not have the ability, the way we were playing, to match it, and they knew it.
Their performance reminded me of what we were like under pressure only a few weeks back. When we were getting under pressure, the handballs were coming out. We were missing those targets. I don't know whether you've seen on the couch last night, but they showed some vision. Gary Lyon put it up of just those missed handballs under pressure, just making it someone else's problem. I'm under pressure. Here you go. And it was just either to their feet or just out of their reach. It was just that, flicking the handballs around. And that's that stat before where you mentioned the high handball game. That's just not taking your responsibility yourself. That's just flicking it out to a teammate because you feel you're under pressure yourself. So, it's all credit to Freo, really.
It is, and ultimately the outcome of that dominance was the inside 50s, and you mentioned before it was 68 to 37. No team, I don't care how inefficient you are. Well, I don't want to be completely silly about it, but if you have a discrepancy of 31 inside 50s, no team should be losing that game.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like it's too much. There's too much opportunity for teams to score heavily, and that's exactly what we did. Now, I want to talk about a few specific players because since I've been going, obviously I've been keeping in touch with yourself and others as best as I can, but
Yep.
it turns out who knew communications in China isn't great, so it's a little bit difficult to get your footy feed. But so the first one a player I'd like to talk about is Jai Amos. So look, he had a few weeks there where it just didn't, it wasn't working for him, and of course the hyperbole came out. Probably the same media who, are sucking the what of Harley Reid are jumping into Jai Amos.
Yeah.
So he had a few. Look, he had a couple of bad games. I think watching the St Kilda game, he kicked 2 goals 5, but geez, he wasn't. I thought the way he was contesting and that was fine. It was just okay. He had a bit of an off day. Last week against the Pies, you could see his confidence just wasn't quite there. He still had a couple of shots, but it didn't work for him. And yeah, he was pretty. Overall, he would have been the least effective player on the ground. But the guy's got so much talent that that it was going to turn around. And I think you and I were sort of messaging each other. And I think you'd said at the time you wouldn't be surprised if he was given a week off. And my view to that was, well, for guys like that, after a couple of weeks, you got to just play through that, especially a 20-year-old for a key forward. He's always going to have moments like that. I mean, look at Jake Waterman, who I still don't believe is that good a player, although he's playing like a great player at the moment. But look at him. I mean, he's been garbage for 6 years, literal garbage for 6 years, and then now he's leading the Coleman Medal, come out and kick a whole bunch of bags.
Yeah.
So I think we're better off, and we were always better off just plugging him in, keep him in there, and if we could get some better feed to him, then things are going to turn around. And fortunately, in this game, things turned around in a big way. He was probably lucky to get given that mark that was nominated for Mark of the Year. I don't know that it was
my brother. It was a Gazza Ablett Mark of the Year.
Yeah. So but his kicking was solid. I mean, 2 of these goals were from crumb snapshots, and 2 of them were very solid set shots from distance.
I guess my comment around wouldn't be surprised if he missed a week. It was more around, I guess, 1 form, but 2 was Paddy Voss playing for Peel, had good form. So I guess a mixture of those 2. But I was pretty strong on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I'm strong on anyone with concussion. It takes them, even once they clear protocols. Like, I'm not saying he's still got concussion or whatever. It takes them probably the 4 weeks to properly get over it. Like, I reckon if you went back and checked on everyone's performances in those 3-4 weeks after coming back, they wouldn't be at their best.
Yeah. No, and I don't disagree with that. I think, in fact, we've even spoken about that here in that, some of the, head knocks, I had a couple, not, enough to know that I wasn't right for about a month. So how bad his concussion was, I don't know. I didn't, but even if it's a slight concussion, mild concussion, delayed, whatever it was, wasn't delayed, he went straight off. There is nothing good about it, and you're sick, and it takes you a while to get your confidence back.
Differently, so.
Yeah, so I'm not ripping you for your opinion. I reckon it wasn't an irrational opinion, that's for sure. But fortunately for us and for Jai and for the team, this week he kicked 4 on what many believe to be the best fullback in the league. Although I would contend now that I think Alex Pearce has that mantle.
Yeah.
Um,
Sam Taylor
he's
close as well.
centre halfback. Sam Taylor's pretty good, but I think. I mean, let's talk. Okay, so we've talked about Amos. Let's talk about Pearce for a bit. Alex Pearce, to me, when we gave him the captaincy, I always knew he was a very good player. 200 centimetres. His start of his career was very much broken up because of broken legs and ankle issues.
Yep.
And for a while there, our backline with Hamling and Pearce, when they were playing, looked like we had the future for the backline just absolutely sewn up. And then obviously they both got completely injured. We know where Hamling is now at Sydney and Pearce. It took him a little while to get back to that. But within the four walls of the club, he was obviously always well renowned, and the boys love him, and he got voted in as captain. And for me and people I know around me, we were all like, well, what the hell? Okay, maybe this is a bit of a stopgap captaincy, a bit like when Mundy came in, just holding the place until Sarong was just a little bit older to take over. So I think, reflecting on my thoughts now, I think I was probably a little bit unfair on Pearce, unfair on his impact. Because one of my main questions was, how can you have a fullback be your captain? They're not the ones driving the game. They're not the one. They're not attacking. They're not going to be the ones who are providing that. The inspirational moments of goal kicking that you need. So how was that going to work? And I think, well, in that game against Collingwood, he just happened to go forward, and and we all knew with the backdrop of Cam McCarthy's tragic passing, he was the one to stand up. He did kick a goal. Now, you don't have to kick a goal to be inspirational, but I think that entire game he was he really showed his wares, and he's been that way all year. He was like that last year, although I think last year we were going so atrociously that it's very hard. It was very hard for anyone, in that team, the way we were playing. So maybe history will show that, or history is starting to show that I was wrong.
I don't think you're alone in that call, though. So I think there was a lot of people outside those four walls that sort of questioned the same sort of lines. So is this a Monday style gap fill for a couple of years until I think they had Brayshaw in front of Sarong, like from a media point of view. I think that was the line at the time. Sarong's obviously jumped ahead now, but I don't think you're alone there.
Yeah. So all right. So Pearce, who's 28, I think, or 29. He's probably, you'd probably have him as captain for another year, maybe after this. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how things go. But in my mind, something would have to go wrong for him not to be All-Australian fullback.
Oh, 100%.
At the end of this year.
Yep.
So the next player I want to... Yeah.
I was going to say, sorry, I think we've got 3 potential backline All-Australians with Luke Ryan and Clark.
Jordan Clark. Yeah. So they'll never do that, the AFL, I don't think. Yeah, they'll never have...
I think they'll be in the squad, but yeah.
Yeah. So in my mind, it would be Alex Pearce and Jordan Clark, I reckon, that'd make it. And that would be incredibly unfair to Luke Ryan.
To leave out,
yeah, but I think I just cannot see a situation where the AFL makes, Ryan halfback flanker, Clark halfback flanker, and Pearce fullback. But maybe one of them sit on the bench. But yeah, we'll see. I think with the way our backline functions and the way that I think we're now the best or the most stingiest defence in the league. We jumped up from second. I reckon Pearce is definitely in it. Now, the other player, another player that I want to give my flowers to, I've been very hard on, and that is Jaeger O'Meara. So when we got him, I don't know if you remember, the media, everyone was talking, oh, this is great. We've got the David Mundy replacement. Somebody who can go through the middle, has got class, can kick it well. And it just has not happened that way. But what I think with Jaeger, what we're starting to see is, and this might be something that I've underestimated, but from the outside looking in now, it seems as though he has acknowledged that, okay, he isn't the guy when it comes to the midfield anymore. He's got another 3 years to go on his contract, I think, or at least another 2.
Yep.
He has seemingly acknowledged that, okay, if I'm going to stay in this team, I need to be a half-forward flanker. I need to be a winger. I need to be a run-with player. I need to be whatever it needs to be. But I will do whatever the team needs me to do.
Yep.
And that has led to, I think, lower disposals and lesser impact on games as to what we traditionally may have seen from him when he was at Hawthorn or Gold Coast, and probably perhaps against our expectations when we recruited him. But last year, I won't say was a great year for him, but this year I would say he is having a very positive influence on the team. And on the weekend, I'm just looking at the stats here. He had 26 touches. Didn't kick a goal, got a point. He had 5 tackles. He had 17 kicks, and a lot of his disposals were nice kicks into the forward line, to guys like Tracy and that. He had 291 metres gained. So, to me, if he's doing that, he's doing his job. Even if he's getting 20 touches and doing that, he's probably doing his job. He kicked a couple of goals against, I think it was the Saints, was it? The Saints? I think he kicked a couple of clutch goals against the Saints when things were tight. He kicked a couple of goals, I think, against the Pies as well. So, another guy that I probably need to give his flowers at the moment.
Yeah, good call.
So then, so another guy who I think has become probably in our top 5 most important players, and a guy who I never thought would necessarily get there because of history, and that's Josh Tracy. So my theory on Tracy has always been that you show me a rookie key forward who has made it as a gun key forward. And now I know that Taylor Walker was technically a rookie, but he wasn't. He was an academy player who Adelaide had access to, who they brought onto their rookie list. Yeah. Josh Tracy is not that. He was just picked 40 in the rookie draft. And he is turning into some sort of footballer. His ability to kick straight at goals is amazing. That's fantastic. But his field kicking, he can set his teammates up. Yeah. And he really has a great skill set when it comes to that. You couple that with his ability to be aggressive at the man, his ability to potentially, stop gap in the ruck if Darcy or Jacko is injured at any point.
Yep.
You couple that and with that, and we have some kind of a player there.
It's hard to fault his skill set, as you say. Like, he's starting to really clunk him now. Like last year, I think the knock on him was that he wasn't taking the marks. So he was able to take a couple here and there, and was able to kick a couple of goals here and there. This season, he is just absolutely marking everything that's in front of him. And the other thing is, if he's not marking it, he's impacting the contest where it's coming to ground. So he's not allowing that. So if it was last week, he's not allowing the Melbourne defenders to zone off and take that easy mark. He's impacting that ball, getting it to ground where you got Walters and Sturt and the others.
Yeah, he's turning into some sort of a player, and like I said, history is. I mean, history tells us what has happened, not what will happen.
Yep.
But it can be a good form guide, right? And so my theory has always been, and I've been right for a long time, but it was always going to eventually. There was always eventually going to be a star key forward rookie. But prior to what Tracy is doing now, the best example would have been Quinton Lynch, who I would never say the word star and Quinton Lynch in the same breath. I know he won a flag, and good on him. But so he that forward line combo of Amos, Jackson, and Tracy, we showed on the weekend, that can really be disruptive.
Yep.
Yeah.
And speaking of the forward line, I wrote some notes down. So just like I've been saying it for a little while that I think we've had some good opportunities going forward, and we've been a bit wasteful. So this isn't just on those 6 guys in the forward line. It's been about how we've been going forward, I guess. So you start off round 1, we put up 93 against the Lions. Next week we turn up against the Roos after a pretty shocking start, if you remember that game. 9 goals, 15 against the Crows in a game we won by 35. That could have been anything, that scoreline. Port and Carlton games, we missed opportunities for turnovers. West Coast game, well, that was the West Coast game. Looking at it, you probably give them a mulligan, just like you've given Sydney one with Richmond. But good game versus the Dogs, we put up 95. Then we put 100 points on the board against the Tigers. I know your thoughts on the Swans game, but kicking 4-15 isn't going to get you anywhere near it.
Yeah.
We had 110 compared to their 10-1 at one point.
Yeah.
9-18 versus the Saints in a game that should have been a smacking as well. So the Pies, the last 10 minutes we kicked those 4 goals. Prior to that, we were a little bit wasteful going forward. And then it all, on the weekend, what did we kick? 22-9?
End score.
Similar inside 50s.
Yeah.
To previous weeks.
Yeah, so the end score was 22-9, yeah, to 7-7.
So similar inside 50s, but we were able to maximise our method going forward. There's games where we put 90, 100 points on the board, and then there's games where we kick, like against the Saints, 9-18, or against the Crows, 9-15. You switch that around, and it's a belting. Like, we've got the second highest percentage.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I've been guilty of saying you switch that around in the future. In the past, and we could have been this, we could have. But I'm also of the view that woulda, coulda, shoulda. We've consistently done this, so there's no point saying if we switch it around because we never do. We always, we always seem to do this. Now, we didn't do it on the weekend, so my question is this the norm? Is this the norm?
History would show it's not the norm. So
no.
History would show we don't take our opportunities like we did. And that may have been because we weren't under the pressure we were in other games, because Melbourne were just terrible.
Yeah, so we do have to acknowledge that we were magnificent, right? But they were garbage. That was garbage. That was kind of like their West Coast game, really.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
although they
you can
lost to
only
West
see
Coast
what's in
as well.
front of you, but yeah,
Yeah.
just a lack of pressure in all facets. So.
Yeah, but I agree. Yeah, that I don't know what the hell's going on with them. But I mean, there's Jake Lever missing, but who else were they missing? That was their best. That was
I don't think there's anyone
that
else
was
in that back line.
no. There's no one else in that back line. I don't think there was anyone missing truly in their midfield either. I mean, they dropped Jack Billings, so he just wasn't playing because he wasn't playing. Who's missing out of their forward line? Ben Brown. Well, he's been dropped as well. So they had other than Lever, you would say they had a full complement. Now, Lever isn't making up 92 points.
Nah. No.
He's a good player. He's one of their better players, but yeah. So I see. This to me should be like the norm. Now I messaged Justin after this game. I've had a few little chats with him lately, actually, last week. And that there is essentially what he was saying to me. That there is the first time that he can really remember as a coach where everything has gone to plan. Like for Freo, when he's been coaching Freo.
I actually wrote a thing to give credit to JL, especially around the game plan going into this game.
Yeah, we have to. I've been so hard on him, and I was particularly hard on him this week, although not on this podcast, obviously. But and yeah, we planned for Melbourne. We had our own. You could tell we had a system in place, and the guys executed it faultlessly. So, and that's coaching, right? That is coaching. So, here's a stat. Here's a stat which I still trying to get my head around this. Did you know that whenever the Dockers have kicked 79 points or more, we are 37 wins, 0 losses.
The Longmuir or in general?
Under Longmuir. That blows my mind. So whenever we've got a half-functional forward line, we win. We win 100% of the time. Like, that staggers me. Like, I just cannot believe that stat. And it just goes to show that, okay, our defence is always solid. A midfield who again I'm probably pretty hard on. Okay, we know what we're going to get out of them most of the time, but if we could just get this, if we can get this forward line right, then we've really got something here. By going by those stats. Anyway, so look, amazing performance. I think, time's going to tell whether this is the norm. We have a bye next week, and then we go into play, believe it or not, the Western Bulldogs again over in Marvel, who are not going to be an easy out. But
one of the form sides, to be honest.
Yeah, but if we play like that, like we did on the weekend, I don't know who's beating us. So give us a week. Maybe, hopefully, we can we can replicate that. And if we beat the Bulldogs in Melbourne in the form that they're in, then that will take us to what? 8, 4, and 1. That should set us up pretty well for a tilt at the finals, you'd say. And who knows, maybe even higher. Maybe we could go top 4 with the way the competition's going.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, suggest we just have a very short break, and then when we come back, I'd like to talk about a few other things going on in the NFL. I'd like to talk about the trade period upcoming and potential targets that we're going to go for. Also, I'd like to talk around the hysteria of the Golden Child and his thuggish tackle because I've had some banter with certain football personalities on that too. So yeah. All right. So we'll just have a small break and then we'll come back. Welcome back to the You Can't Handle the Truth Sports podcast. So that was the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Danny, California. Saw them last year when they came. Bloody good band. Also, unfortunately, they were supported by Post Malone, and I had my headphones on listening to Rammstein instead of listening to that garbage. But the Chili Peppers were fantastic. So, want to talk about the trade period upcoming and other sort of AFL topics. There's been a lot talking about Fremantle with who they're going to chase. At the moment, right now, as it stands, we have pick 10, 13 and 15 in this year's draft period. So, and, we've got plenty of cash. The expectation is that Fremantle are going to try and target players or player. And the thought had always been Logan McDonald. And that was because, we've always stated that our forward line, or we've always seen that our forward line's been pretty average. But with Jackson, Amos, and Tracy, and Voss sitting in the wings, and Sturt, who I think still has a bit to offer, the question is now, do we even need to target Logan McDonald? And I would say probably not. So would you agree with that? I think you're on mute, mate.
100% agree. I think we spoke about it before. With those forwards you mentioned, I think we are targeting explosive midfielder and a small forward. I mean, Walters is 33 and he's obviously hinted at retirement this week. So, I think
did he hint at retire this week? Did he?
Yeah, there was a tweet that went out, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but he sort of hinted at retirement. So, I mean, he's 33, so it's not going to be far away.
No, okay. I didn't know he's hinting at it, but his form probably this year hasn't been up to his normal standard, but okay. But I hadn't heard anything. So I want to show you a photo. Can you see my screen there?
I can see your screen.
All right.
I know where you're going to go with this.
So there are 4 young lads there. Okay, all wearing Dockers jumpers. The second one on the right there is a player by the name of Chad Warner. And the Dockers need to throw everything that they can to get him to the club. Yep. He is known as very, very close mates with Luke Jackson and Jeremy Sharp. Fremantle boy growing up. He's the epitome of what we need to chase. And he's put his contract on hold. He's still contracted for next year. I've asked Justin about him, and he's gone, I can't really talk too much about opposition players.
Which is fair enough.
But what he did say is that we would be absolutely bonkers if we didn't go and try and get Chad Warner at our club. I think this is a possibility. You don't often hear players just put their contract on hold. Although to be fair, Sydney don't often lose men. They don't often lose players.
No.
So, if we should be offering this guy over $1 million a year. we should be offering picks and players and whatever we need to do to get him into the club.
So just on
And
the dollars there, so a lot of and you probably would have seen it yourself being on X. So I just got a little interruption here.
you're right. So yeah,
some of the West Coast supporters are trying to say they've got the cash free, whereas we don't. So who would we be paying apart from Darcy and LJ?
So first of all, I'm what they call a salary cap truther. And by that I mean I don't believe that you can't, like, you can not get around the salary cap like Carlton did, and not like that. I mean, you can manipulate the cap to get around what you need to get around.
100%.
Now, if it meant getting Chad Warner to the club, I'm sure we would retire players. You just spoke about Walters. We would retire him. Now, how much money's he on? I'm not sure. Probably not a lot. But there are plenty of players that we could restructure the contract. We could front end it. We could back end it. There is anyone who thinks, if the Eagles supporters are thinking that they've got the leg up because of money, I truly do not believe that's the case.
Yeah. And that's my thinking as well, but that's been the general. Yeah.
As much as they may want that to be the case, I'm sure it's not. Now, the other thing in all of this is that players, if Warner wants to come to Freo, his mates are here, he's grown up Freo supporter. If that's the case, then maybe the $1.2 million becomes 1.1 or something, because if he wants to come to Freo and be successful, then he also would understand that, okay, you've got a bunch of other, he can't do it all by himself. He's got to have his mates getting paid as well. So, yeah, I really don't think dollars will come down to, although, yes, he will be on probably the most money we've ever paid a player. So, yeah, the Eagles are going to be paying their man, Reid, if he's going to stay, which I'm not convinced he will, but if he is going to stay, he will be on more money than anybody. Yeah, he'll be on more money than anybody in the league.
Yep.
So, which is why I kind of hope he does stay. Because I reckon the Eagles would just put themselves into, pressure. Because I don't know that, I know that they're changing with
everyone else.
Yeah, if they're changing with the EBA and that, I know that money's increasing in that respect soon. So, they'll probably just give that money all to Harley Reid. But yeah, you've got to be paying other players. You can't just have you just can't have $1.9 million going to Reid and then $7 million going to everyone else. It doesn't work that way. So he's the first player who he has to be priority one. And I think my suspicion is that if Sydney win the flag and he is 50-50 about staying or going, I reckon that might be enough. That might help us get him across the line. Bit like when we got Josh Carr. Port won the premiership, and yeah, that was almost his permission to leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see there. Now the other one who people have been talking about is Liam Baker. Now it would be a big mistake for us if we were to chase Liam Baker. He's a good player, but
I see him as a role player more than anything. They swing him around everywhere. He's in the back line, through the midfield. He goes up forward every now and then.
But what role is he playing for us? Like what?
Exactly. Is he even
Yeah.
in that? He's in that midfield mix. He's not getting a game ahead
So
of Brayshaw and Sarong and Young and those
nah.
guys.
So I see him going to the Eagles. I
Oh,
absolutely see
so
him going to the Eagles.
yeah.
But I reckon that they'll be paying him stupid money for what he is. I reckon he'll end up getting like a 600-700 grand a year contract, and I just don't
Yeah.
think he's that.
I just think it's
Um,
just a little bit of his management throwing the Freo line out there, like they
yeah,
normally do,
yeah,
just to get a good deal
yeah.
for him.
Although it's Cal Toomey who's been talking Freo up in that respect. So he tends to be, I think,
Mm.
informed, one of the more informed people. But
We'd probably have an interest at the right price.
yeah, I would not want one of our top three picks to be going.
Nah,
To be going,
not at all.
no, I wouldn't be giving him pick. I wouldn't be giving up pick 15 for Liam Baker. That's for sure. Are there any other players that you're aware of?
The other one, which is getting linked at the moment, and it's fully a combination of where he's at in his career and what we need, and I guess the way their team's going, is Charlie Cameron.
Yeah,
So there's been a bit of a link with him coming back to WA from Newman, I think it was. His family's from. There has been that bit of a link there. I mean, he's 30, so he's on the wrong side for us. But if Walters does decide to hang the boots up, do you? And there's no other small forwards immediately on the horizon. Is Charlie Cameron an option similar to O'Meara?
so yeah, I rate Charlie Cameron very highly. Um, but oh, what would he cost? And I also don't like the fact that he did this when he was playing for Adelaide.
Yeah.
You know, mid contract. Oh, I want to leave. He would be very very handy. He would be very very handy for us. Um, his form's been pretty ordinary this year.
Yeah, but that just goes along with the Lions in general. I think this year they haven't been great, so
Yeah, yeah. Look, I'd have him. I would definitely. We could definitely find room in our team for him. But
I think it'd cost similar to just the stage of his career. They wouldn't want to be paying the Lions. That is, they wouldn't want to be paying a massive contract if his form's going to fall off a cliff. So they may
yeah,
be inclined to want to move him on as well. It might be a mutual sort of decision if they've got a couple of smalls around coming through, and I think they do. I just can't. I've got a guy in mind. I just can't think of his name.
well, they've got Bailey. What is it? Zach Bailey, and yeah,
Yeah,
they've got some good medium small forwards. But if his form is going to fall off a cliff, then why would we want him?
yeah, I get that. I'm just saying from Brisbane's point
Mm,
of view, if they think that's going to happen, we may have the opposite opinion. We may think that he
yeah,
comes to us and we can recapture that form. I don't know.
yeah. I think he'd be pretty handy. He would be he'd be pretty handy for us, I reckon.
Yeah,
But yeah, especially with the big boys, um, you know, getting the ball down, him being at the feet of the big boys. You got him and Freddie,
mm.
Switter, pretty decent, pretty decent. Yeah, look, it'd be interesting. I just don't know what he would cost in trade.
Yeah.
Like, what would you want? What would you want to give up for him?
I wouldn't want to be giving second round to be the absolute max. I reckon, but
Mm,
probably the back end of a second round. Just 30-year-old. Like
yeah,
you don't exactly know what you're going to get once they get to that age. Some guys just continue their form to the end, and some guys they just seem to hit this age bracket and the form just goes.
yeah,
They lose a yard or two of speed, and
yeah.
I mean I'm not saying he has, but
And what about dollars?
you wouldn't be putting him on a massive contract. Like
Yeah.
if he wants to come
See, I think
home,
that
then here you go. We'll offer you a contract to come
yeah.
home. Otherwise, stay at Brisbane.
See, I get the suspicion. My suspicion is that he would do this as like a payday, a golden
So
parachute.
I'll give you another bit of info. Have a guess who his
Okay.
manager is.
Ha, Colin Young. Fuck. All right. Well then, no. Nah.
Yep.
No thanks. Yeah. No thanks. No, we don't need that douchebag hanging around any more than what he already has.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right, but that'd be interesting. Yeah, I just get the feeling he'd be chasing a golden parachute. That's what I. Bit like Rory Lobb, right? Like Rory Lobb, as as garbage as he's been, he has been. He's quite brilliant at business, really, Rory, because and maximising his value. He is he's got 2 years left on his contract, and you watch. At the end of this year, he will sign another 3-year deal with another club. So he'll eke out an extra year, even though he's been terrible and been playing VFL.
And at what point does it come back on him? Like every
No,
time.
no, this is it's all him,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
But
but like in
but
his mind, when does he start thinking, oh, maybe it's me? And
yeah,
stop thinking about
maybe he already does. Maybe he already knows. Maybe he's just like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm just gonna make I've got another 3 or 4 years left in me, I think. So I'm just gonna do what I can and just go to whichever team will have me for the longest. They'll have me. And you know what? He should go to North Melbourne. He won't have to compete. He won't have to. He'll just go there. He'll sit up forward, Larky and him. Zerha will be on a half forward. He'll play every single game.
Yep.
He'll probably get his 600 grand a year, and he won't have earned a bit of it. Yeah.
The Bulldogs selection, like him selecting the Bulldogs to go to,
It was odd.
I never understood it. Like when you already had Norton and Jamara down there, then surely you knew that Darcy was going to be coming through. So there's 3 behind. It just did not make sense.
So from my perspective, I think it made plenty of sense from Rory's side. And that is because the Bulldogs offered him a 4-year deal on good money. No one else was giving him that. So he took that, which I understand. What I don't understand is what the hell were the Bulldogs doing? Like, that's what I don't understand. And so now Rory can parlay that into another contract because he'll say, well, I'm contracted with the Bulldogs for another 2 years. If you want me to come to your club, you've got to give me 3 years or you've got to give me 4 years. So it's bizarre. Yeah, before we close her up, what I wanted to do is I'm going to try something a little bit different here. I'm going to try and share screen.
I'll just close my door while you're doing that. And then the last thing probably I've got is the Forgotten Dockers.
Yeah, Forgotten Dockers, yes. Can you see my screen there?
I can.
All right, press play. Right, so that innocuous little nothing tackle got Jager O'Meara 1 week suspension. Now, I've had a lot of discussion with various media personalities because Harley Reid has been given a two-match suspension for what I'm going to show in a second. I do not understand why there is any sort of any sort of fuss about this because in my mind, what Harley Reid did was the exact kind of tackle that the AFL are trying to stamp out.
Yep.
So just take a look at this. Share screen. So, by the way, you act like a petulant fucking child in this game.
No, it doesn't.
His head hits the ground. So, in my mind, the hysteria around Harley Reid not being suspended, not getting his rising star. It's silly.
Yep.
Okay, fine. You can argue whether or not tackles like that should be suspendable or not. I'm probably a little bit old school. I think when we were playing footy, that was normal, those kinds of things. But we're in a different world.
Yep.
I'll listen to the argument that should a rising star be taken off because of an act like that. I'd probably even agree with that. What I won't listen to is what I've been listening to, which is people saying, "Nah, there's no way that should be suspended." It absolutely, by the rules, is a 2-week suspension. O'Meara got one for what was absolutely nothing. We just saw that. And that guy's head didn't even hit the ground. The guy, Spargo, his head didn't even hit the ground. Now, the only thing stopping Harley Reid from having a 6-week holiday is luck. If Wilson's head had have hit that ground a little bit harder, he would have been concussed. That would have been 4 to 6 week suspension. So I know the media here are a joke. I'm kind of tired of it. Yeah, no, it's been everywhere.
Yeah.
But
and if it hadn't have been Harley Reid and it hadn't have cost him the Rising Star, and it just happened to be the same week that Sam Darcy went as well. So then, yeah, that came into it. But that tackle, like you said, 100% is exactly what they want to get rid of. Like, he got put into a very vulnerable position, and there was absolutely another method that Harley could have used to tackle that guy.
Yeah.
There was no duty of care shown, and that's what the AFL have been saying for however long now, is the tackler now has a duty of care to the player they're tackling. So he showed
especially
none.
When they're vulnerable.
Yep, he showed none. Threw him to the ground, head hit the ground. As you say, lucky he didn't have concussion. Who's to say he's not going to have delayed concussion? That'll be interesting this week to see whether that comes through.
Well, yeah.
It has happened. I think we had Switter pass the test was it a month ago or so?
Yeah,
ended up,
yeah.
I think he ended up
and then he missed
3
2 or
weeks
3
off.
weeks. Yeah.
So it might have got through the test on the day, but we'll see this week whether he actually plays this week's game. So I have no issue with the 2 weeks. I know they're challenging it.
But they're not challenging it to get him off.
No,
they're challenging it to get it down from 2 to 1.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, So I think that's the exact sort of tackle that they're trying to get out, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and they've been pretty consistent on it, to be honest. Apart from the Charlie Cameron one, which that's what I've been saying to the Eagles supporters, that he's obviously not a good bloke. So
yeah, The thing about the Charlie Cameron one is that people keep pointing to that, but that is the exception. What about the 15 tackles that they've suspended, like O'Meara? They're talking about the one that got off. Yeah. Well, that was the stupid decision.
Yeah,
not the other 15.
Understand that was a stupid decision.
Yeah, and the AFL don't help themselves by having. I mean, history is littered with random acts that get off for no real reason. Like when Chris Judd elbowed Matthew Pavlich and opened him up and then won the Brownlow that year. Like, anyone could see that he struck him. There's always been random weird decisions where you go, how the hell did he get off that? Charlie Cameron's is one of those. Harley Reid will go. I think 2 weeks is fair because O'Meara got one, and O'Meara's was nothing close to being anything like that. Yep. Now, to be fair to Callum Chambers and Will Schofield and people like that who I've been chatting with, they have also said, well, O'Meara should definitely not have gotten a week for that. It's ridiculous. I think they're living in the old school world which I sort of agree with, that, okay, those sorts of tackles are footy acts. I get it. But
that's the mindset that they're trying to change, and that's what I said that to Callum as well. That I know when he played, it was different, and again with Schofield, I didn't chat to him, but what I said to Callum was, you need to get your head out of when you played. It's a completely different game, mate.
Yeah. Rightio, mate. Well, this has been good. Forgotten Dockers.
Yeah, I'll be relatively quick because we're running out of time. But
Yep.
it's into the forward line. So Todd Ridley.
Odd Riddles. He was traded as part of the old. I think we got Ridley and Delaney for what turned out to be Lucas and Lloyd.
Yeah, it was a good decision on our half. I think we really got one season out of him because I think the second season he played 2 games and then they pissed him off. I think he last played for Hawks. Played for
Oh,
1
really?
year. Yeah.
Really?
1 year for Hawks.
Geez, I didn't know that. I did not know that.
The
Okay.
next one, Shane Kirsten.
Ah.
So 2
Yeah,
games.
right.
Oh, sorry, not 2 games. 2 seasons. 29 games. But he was going that bad in that second season with us that they threw him as a key defender.
Yeah. And he played okay as a key defender for Peel.
Limited success.
I will say about Kirsto.
Yeah.
I will say about Kirsto, in his first year, he got top 10 best and fairest. So
it was a massive fall from grace from that.
shout out
He
to my mate
did
Louis.
a goal to win the game. Wasn't after
Yeah.
time, but he had that snap in the pocket.
Yeah, against North.
Yep.
Shout out to my mate Louis, by the way, who Kirsto was his apprentice for a while there. Yeah, before he got big in the footy scene.
Next one, Kingsley Hunter.
Oh yeah, the flying eyebrow.
Yeah.
He
goalkeeper
ended up
Claremont.
Yeah.
And got a question for you.
Yeah.
Though he didn't win it while he was with us, but what major award did he win during his career?
Mark of the year?
Close.
Oh, because I know he took an absolute hanger one day. What was it? Goal? He got goal of the year, did he?
Dogs had him running across half back, and he took a ball from.
Yeah. Because he ended up going to the Bulldogs, and he was a decent full back or half back flanker. And then he would have played 70 games or something for them, and then then they delisted him, and he played 1 season at Hawthorn. And then his career pitted out. But I saw him not that long ago at the footy. He's got long hair, and he isn't that tall. Nowhere near as tall as what I actually thought he was. Like, he wasn't much taller than me. And I'm 6'1", so.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Next,
Good.
Paul Maher.
Oh, Paul Maher.
Just the 5 games. And I still remember this. I did his knee in that little section of Subiaco where a lot of others did their knee.
The wounded knee.
Yep.
I was in the Dockers change rooms on the day that both he and Luke Toyer did their knees in that position. Because, with my contacts at the dock, or, my former contacts at Freo, they used to be able to get in the change rooms a bit.
Yep.
And, I remember seeing him after he'd done it. He was devastated. Yeah, his knees were ruined by ACL injuries. Had a lot of promise from memory. Like, when he was coming through, I remember him being pretty, highly rated.
The goal scorer quite a few times, so... So next one, Clayton Collard. 2007.
Yeah.
He was getting pumped up like he was the next Jeff Farmer. But just never got going. We delisted him, and he went to the Tigers. They rookied him, but delisted him that same year. And I think he ended up in the VFL for Coburg, and then after that he was with Thunder for 1 or 2 years.
Untapped talent, that guy. I don't know that he had the ethic that was required.
Yeah, he's not alone. Not alone there.
I bumped into him one Mad Monday at South Mandurah because he had some rallies.
Yeah.
Rallies playing for South at the time. Yeah, he seemed like a nice enough guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I do remember him, the Dockers being underwhelmed in his willingness to run when required.
Now, the last one in the forward line, I think it'd be a bit remiss. He's not really a forgotten Docker as such, but I think it'd be a bit remiss if one of us didn't include him. Sir Clive.
Sir Clive, yeah.
Taken pick one in the 95 draft, selected before the likes of Primus, Crouch, Presti, Scott Welsh, Barry Hall, Lucuria. I mean, granted, those names aren't Voss or Buckley, but first player to score 100 goals for us, obviously not in a season, but just in general. And when he retired, he was the leading goal scorer, obviously, until Pav decided to come along. But yeah.
So Clive, yeah, man. He first of all, he was pick one in a compromised draft because that was the year that Port Adelaide came in. Yep. So from memory, he was like the 20th best player, but in true Fremantle Dockery form, we happened to get like a very compromised draft. So that was the first thing. Second thing with Clive, my memories of him, he could do anything or he could do nothing. But I remember that game against the Eagles where he kicked 7 and basically won the game off his own boot. Yep. That was the sort of talent he had. He had that ability, but, oh, man, he just didn't, never ever really truly got it together properly. South Australian, I know that for a while there he was trying to get home and we kept him, but and he became a Docker for life. I saw when we played Port Adelaide recently, they had Clive there before the game, and he looks fit. He looks fit and mean. He hasn't let himself go, which is good to see. Yep. He's also got a niece who plays in the women's AFL. AFLW, and she looks exactly like him, the poor lady. But good old Clive. All right, that's it's a good one. Yeah. Well, what we've got to do is we've got to collate these, and we'll put them on our. We'll have to do next. We'll work out some interchange players. We'll put in some random players. I've still got a few. I'm sure you do. Then we can put our teams together, and work from there. So. Good stuff. All right, that was a good episode, mate. I enjoyed that. We'll make sure. Look, we've got a break. Dockers have got a week off, but I reckon maybe next week we can do another one. We can maybe talk some American sports and some other things. But
we should be in the thick of the NBA finals by then. So
happy days. Good stuff. Your time to shine. All right, mate. Well, thanks very much. And look, for everyone, anyone who's listening, you can get at us. You can email us at youcan'thandlethetruthsp@outlook.com. You can get to me on Twitter or X at rubbishych, or you can get to the pistol at the pistol17. Always wanting interaction. And we'll post. We'll post this up today. But thanks for that, and we'll chat again soon.